Welcome to Virtual Lunch. I am your host, Marlis Arnold, and it is so good to be here with you again. It seems like a long time between now that we're just doing Virtual Lunch once a month this year. But it's good to be back. Good to have you here. So go ahead and type your introduction in the comments. Tell us where you're joining from. It's always nice to hear who's with us today. So we're going to change things up a little bit. As if you've been watching us for a long time, you know that for the first 2 years, I had my husband Alan behind the scenes helping, and now that he's gone back to work, I'm flying solo, and so we've been trying to do the comments preloaded, and in LinkedIn, that just doesn't work so well. So we're doing it different. If you are joining us on YouTube, all of the links that I'm going to mention are already in the description on YouTube. I also went in this morning and put it in the description, the details on LinkedIn as well. They're not links, but you can see them and you can just copy and paste those in if you want to check any of those out. So anyway, gotta go with the flow, right? So anyway, first up, the first thing that I want to talk about, the first link that you can go look for later. If you're tired of video meetings where everybody's in little boxes, you know, the whole Brady Bunch thing, there's a platform called Mmhmm. That is the name of the platform, MMHMM. Mmhmm. And they have, they're actually a software that does like presentation, you know, very unique style of presenting instead of just using slides. But they now have a way that you can do video meetings, and instead of being in little boxes, it's more like a video game where you like flying around in the little helicopters, you know, the good old fashioned, those of us that grew up in the 80s and 90s and the old fashioned arcade games. Anyway, so you may want to just go check that out just for fun. And if you do actually try it out as a meeting, I like to hear how that goes. The next one is that some restaurants are now experimenting with using NFTs, which we've talked about a little here, but also having like paywalls and having like kind of VIP packages. And so there's an interesting article. I think it was from the New York Times, but anyway, go check that out and, you know, see how they're doing that, how that's working. How could we implement that in the events and trade show world? You know, are there ways that we could do some kind of special VIP packaging and, you know, kind of have that added level of exclusivity or intrigue, I guess you could say. The next one is BBC did, I guess this was a couple of years ago actually, but I found this article about something called the BBC Futures Bazaar. And so think it's like part trade show or almost more like school science fair with the tables. But it's part trade show, part hackathon, part imagination factory, where everybody, you know, each station was rethinking and imagining what things could be like in the future. So it's a really interesting story, really interesting concept. So I challenge you to go check that out. The next link that I'm sharing is actually one that my friend Joan Eisenstadt, some of you may know her, but Joan shared this link and I thought it was really interesting. And again, all of these things I want to just be as idea sparkers so that we can really think about how can we take some of these concepts and use them to innovate and try things new in our industry. But Lyft has what they call a bike angel program. First of all, I didn't even know Lyft had the bike, you know, where you see the collections of bikes on the corner in like a downtown area that people can rent. Well, anyway, they have a problem, as you can imagine, where sometimes all the bikes end up in one area and another area doesn't have enough. So they have what they call the bike angel program, where they offer credits and prizes to members if they will go pick up a bike at a specific location that's overpopulated, take a bike, ride it to another location that needs bikes, and then they will reward them. And, this, I guess, is becoming almost like a full-time job for some people, because in the article it says that one person earned almost $5,000 in 1 month just by riding bikes back and forth across New York City. So anyway, it's a really interesting concept of, we're going to talk today about the sharing economy. Of course, the bikes, the whole idea of the bikes is a sharing economy thing. But just thinking about how can we do things where we are doing more sharing and partnership and rewarding people for, basically getting on the bandwagon and helping out. So that was a really interesting one. The next one, again, we're talking about the sharing economy, sustainability. So event sustainability is changing. And this was an article from PCMA about how venues and organizations are teaming up in new ways. And the conversation is really evolving about impact and measurement of sustainability. And so, again, if you follow me for any length of time, you know that sustainability is one of my hot buttons. And, we've had guests here on Virtual Lunch before and on the podcast before talking about it. So, go check that out. And then I have a couple of quick announcements. The first one is we have an event coming up on Thursday, which is also on LinkedIn. This is let me go take this down. You can keep typing in the comments, but I'm just going to take the ticker down. So this is going to be a LinkedIn audio conversation. And we're going to if you joined us last month, the way it works is it's kind of like Clubhouse, if you're familiar with that, but you don't have to have any separate software or anything. It all takes place right within the LinkedIn platform. And so we're going to have a discussion about how do you stand out on the trade show floor. So I want you to come with ideas and ahas and things that you've done or things that you've seen that are really great. And then we're going to just swap ideas back and forth. So that is Thursday at noon Central. So same time as this, only on Thursday, whatever time zone you're in. All right. Okay. So then let's see what's next. The next thing is I am getting finally in the final stages of updating my book, Build a Better Trade Show Image. And so now I am ready for, got to take the banner down again. I am ready for beta readers. So if you would like, I need about 3 to 5 more people. So if you would like to be a beta reader, and what that means is just I will get you a copy of the near final manuscript. It's not necessarily final form, obviously, because I'm getting input, but you would have the opportunity to share your feedback and help me, put the final touches on the book. And then also you will get some special perks. Obviously you'll get a copy of the book when it comes out, but you'll also get some other fun perks. So there is the address for that. If you just go to exhibitmarketerscafe.com/build for Build a Better Trade Show Image, build hyphen new, because this is the new edition. So anyway, so that is exciting. I'm so thankful to be finally wrapping up with this. It seems like it's taken a long time just to do an update. But anyway, on to today's special feature. We're doing things, we're changing things up a lot this year or this month. We've got so the comments were different, and also Rhiannon was not able to join us live, so she was gracious enough. We pre-recorded her interview, so I'm going to play it in 3 segments, and I'll take a quick break in between. Go ahead, if you have comments or questions, go ahead and type those in. If they're comments, obviously we'll address those. If they're questions that I can't answer, I will definitely make sure that Rhiannon sees those. So, don't worry about feeling like, she's not here to answer. We will make sure that your question gets answered. So go ahead and keep typing in the chat as we go. But I'm going to go ahead and start out with segment number 1. Well, if you're in the trade show industry and you've been around for any length of time, you probably already know today's guest. And also, we were actually privileged to have her as one of our very first guests on Virtual Lunch when we started back in the summer of 2020. So she's actually been here as a guest in the cafe before. But I want to introduce her to you in case you don't know Rhiannon. Rhiannon Andersen has served as the CMO and co-owner at Steelhead Productions. She oversees all of Steelhead's business development, as well as internal and external communications. In that role, she's helped to guide the company's growth over 630%, while becoming one of Inc. 5000's fastest growing companies in America and one of Inc. magazine's best places to work in America. Rhiannon believes that marketing done well has the power to transform lives and businesses. Rhiannon, welcome back to the cafe for Virtual Lunch.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be back.
Well, I want to really focus today on something that I know Steelhead does very well, and that is the sharing economy and, and doing good things for sustainability in our industry. So let's start out. Tell us, because for some people, the term sharing economy may be a new term, but it's probably not a new concept. So explain a little bit about what that is.
Of course. And likely everybody who is watching or listening is participating in the sharing economy in some regard. So, the sharing economy or circular economy is essentially the use of one thing by many people. So, if you conjure up an Airbnb, one person owns it but rents it out to a lot of people. So, the one asset can be used by many people. You don't have to have a home in every place on the planet that you love anymore. And nor do you have to stay in a hotel. You can actually, through the share economy, through the circular economy, they're synonyms for one another. You can participate in the access model. So you have access to something without having to own it. Does that make sense? It's pretty simple, and likely everybody in their day-to-day life, through Spotify, through Airbnb, through Uber, through HomeAway, they're participating in this system of access in their personal lives. And now the event planner can also be participating in their professional lives as well.
Well, and that's true. That's why I say, people probably don't know the term, but they know the concept, because
totally.
It's everything down to, seeing all that rack of bikes or scooters parked on the corner in a downtown area. People are sharing transportation. So there's so many different ways to do it. So Steelhead has really gone all in on this whole idea of the sharing economy. And talk to us a little bit about what the business model that Steelhead is using now, and how exhibitors can really take advantage, and what are some of the benefits of using this sharing idea in exhibiting.
Sure. So that's a multi-layered question. So
yes.
I'll kind of go back to the beginning. So rooted in our founders' mentality was the idea of the rental exhibit. And in the late 1996, when we were founded, the rental exhibits, it had a bit of a negative connotation, maybe similar to like a rental car. And you think, somebody's been smoking in there. It's not like pristine. And it really, conjured up like this like negative connotation. And yet our founder, Jim Andersen, believed that this model provided a level of monetary and creative flexibility for the end user. So throughout the history, since 1996, when we were founded, we have always provided rental exhibits, and custom exhibits for a very long period of time in order to like meet the market where the market was at. And then in 2018, my business partner and I, having taken over the operation of the business in 2006, in 2018, as this access model, the share economy, the circular economy was really becoming widely understood by everybody, we decided to become one of the first suppliers, exhibit suppliers, to go solely access model. Now, we believe at Steelhead that the access model should be the only way that exhibitors should ever go to market at a trade show or an event. And I'll tell you why we believe that. So for a couple reasons, many exhibitors have programs with varying size environments that they need to service throughout the year. So owning one infrastructure that suits all of these different footprints and all of these different audiences is very challenging. Also, a marketing life cycle in today's marketing world is very short. So when
True.
you're shackled to an infrastructure that you've had to use a lot of operating capital to purchase, typically there's a depreciation schedule. So then finance is telling you, wow, we've spent $500,000 on building this custom environment. Now you have to use it for the next 3 to 5 years. And as a marketer, that's devastating to have the same environment when people are so used to ever evolving marketing in today's market. So to have that is very hindering. And so the share economy, essentially the model that Steelhead runs solely, we own all of the hardscape that an exhibitor could really almost about 95% of the time ever need. So if you think about attending a trade show, exhibits, event environments, they have walls, they have registration desks, they have conference rooms, they might have an upstairs, downstairs. The architecture tends to be very similar. And I like to think of the inventory that we own and give event planners access to as the skeleton. And then you can make it beautiful and you can make it unique and you can make it custom to your audience, custom to your footprint, custom to your brand, custom to your brand messaging through the utilization of graphics and other accessory architecture elements. But for the most part, we believe that because of the nature of these short events that we specialize in, that the access model does work for everybody, can ultimately work for every event planner.
All right, so that was the end of the first segment. I want to actually point out a couple of things. I have some links, both one from Rhiannon and also a couple of other links about the sharing economy, so you can learn a little bit more about it, how it works, if you really want to delve into that whole idea. But anyway, those links are in both in YouTube in the description and also on LinkedIn if you click the read more in the details area on the page where you're watching this. So we are going to go ahead. I'm looking, I don't see any other comments. So I'm going to go ahead and start part 2. I love that explanation because it's true that really exhibitors don't need to own everything themselves. And, and why would you want to have that space and that, just all that expense of storing everything as well. That's something else that they can outsource to somebody else.
Yeah.
So let's shift gears and talk a little bit about sustainability in general, because I know that's a huge part of Steelhead.
It is.
What, as exhibitors, if an exhibit manager feels like they're very passionate about this, they really think that sustainability is an important thing, and they really want to try to get that buy-in, especially from the executive level in their company, what are some of the things that they can do, or how can they frame this? Because like you said, it is a total shift in mindset as to how exhibiting works. So how can they frame this maybe to kind of bring this subject up within their company?
Sure. So in today's corporate landscape, and it really transcends every industry, the concerns about our natural resources are omnipresent. And it is becoming a talking point personally, and it's becoming a talking point in nearly every boardroom or conference room or mission or vision planning for any business in any industry. So I think event planners, they're not presenting a concept that is super foreign to most
No.
anybody at this point. And so typically, and what we're finding at Steelhead, companies already have sustainability initiatives on some level weaved inside their organization. And it might not be transitioned over to the event planning team. But typically, what we're finding is that the event manager can provide a bridge to initiatives that are already existing inside the organization, essentially like extending the sustainability initiatives by utilizing an access model. And you go back to that, like, reduce, reuse, recycle. It was
Right.
so ingrained in all of us, like, in the early 2000s. And that's essentially what the access model is. It's reducing the need for natural resources. It's reducing, and you're recycling. You're keeping things from the landfill. So just diverting waste. And I know, being such a long tenured figure in our industry, but the event industry tends to be very wasteful.
Yeah.
And any amount of waste that we can keep out of the landfill is a net positive for everybody and every species on the planet.
Well, and the other thing is too, because I think even if an exhibit or exhibit company, a company who's doing exhibits is thinking about sustainability and reducing waste, they've got that. If they're buying their exhibit, they've got that whole issue of, well, what do we do with it when we're done with it?
Absolutely.
So even if they're wanting to be sustainable and reduce and recycle, they can't really, it's not, there's not a built-in easy way for them to do that in a
No.
normal a normal
Yeah.
flow of things. And so I think that's where, again, doing the access model, even if there's some things that they choose that they still want to own themselves, because I'm sure there's
Right.
some exhibitors that feel that way,
Yeah.
that there's some things they just want to keep control of and own. But there's still a lot of pieces that can be rented and, and not have that responsibility of all of those
Yeah.
pieces, both where to store them and what to do with them when you no longer need them anymore.
Absolutely. And one of the most major forces that my business partner and I witnessed truly in our pursuit of 100% access model at Steelhead and becoming a B Corp certified company, one of the major factors was simply the amount of waste. And it wasn't
Mhm.
just the amount of waste that we were seeing on the trade show floor, it was the amount of waste that we were having to, as the supplier, deal with. And it was
True.
significant and very hard to be a responsible business owner in the removal of that from our facility. It was very, very difficult. And, there are only so many projects Habitat for Humanity will accept, plywood for.
That's true. And that's something that probably a lot of exhibitors don't really think about, is how much waste they're causing on your end, by having
Yeah.
new things manufactured all the time. So
Yeah.
you brought up B Corp, and I know that's
Yep.
a deep subject we can't really delve into, but
Yeah.
you are a B Corp certified company. So just tell
Mhm.
us kind of in a nutshell, what does that
Sure.
mean and why is that important?
Okay, I'm so glad you asked because it's one of the accreditations that we're most proud of. So, B Corp company means three things. As a certified B Corp company, you have a triple bottom line business: people on the planet and profit. And so, you're a for profit company that has initiatives that take the planet into mind and people. And what I find super fascinating is that this is an accreditation that's issued by a third party, and it's very laborious. And so our executive
Mm.
leadership team, when we decided to go for the accreditation, we realized we were going to be under the microscope all of the operational practices within our business, our employee handbook, the way we engage with the community, our profit model, everything was going to be scrutinized. But we are really so proud of the type of work that we provide in the industry that we decided to go for it. And so in 2020, we were provided our official B Corp certification, the only event company in North America to be certified. And it puts us amongst the ranks of like Honest Company, Patagonia, REI, Ben and Jerry's, all these other really notable brands who take into consideration their impact on people and the planet as for-profit companies.
That is so cool. And I love how
Thanks.
you broke it down to where it's people, planet, and profit. And I think
Correct.
so many times people don't realize that you can actually incorporate all three of those things together, that it's not mutually exclusive. So
totally not. And it's never really been more important, I think, to consider all three. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Especially as we're coming out of the post-pandemic world, I think that it's even more important to make sure that it's a good balance among the three.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is the end of segment 2. I think that was so good to really frame the whole idea of people, planet, and profit. And Andrew's got a couple of comments here that I want to share. He says, it's exciting to think that by sharing these exhibit elements, we can keep from constantly reproducing the same exhibit pieces, which keeps a lot out of landfills. Yeah, that's what I think has been so shameful about our industry for so long. He also said it's also worth mentioning the trade show industry is actually second only to the general construction industry in terms of waste produced. Eek. So yeah, anything that we can do as a whole is so important. And Michelle says that the whole idea is so amazing. And I agree. I think that it's so important. This is a conversation that just hasn't happened enough in our industry. And I think that it definitely needs to be a focus going forward. So I'm glad that we're having this conversation today. So now I'm going to play our third segment with Rhiannon, and then I'll be back for a few final thoughts. Well, I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about, because another aspect, Steelhead has been a real trailblazer on the sustainability side, but also you have embraced the idea of virtual, because in our industry, it's been a very controversial thing. But you have actually developed one part of the business that is, what I want to say, that is really kind of leading the way in the virtual side and doing some very innovative things. So tell us a little bit about that, because anybody that listens and participates very often in Virtual Lunch knows that I'm a huge fan of virtual, and I've been talking about it. I actually mentioned it 20 years ago in my book. So it's not a new concept to me, but not many people are embracing it yet. So tell us what you guys are doing.
Sure. So I'll just go back to like human behavior. And we all spend the majority of our time in front of a computer screen or on our phone. And we are living life in a virtual way. You can be upset about it if you'd like, but that's the reality that we're all living within right now. And so instead of resisting it, instead of really pushing it super hard, because we're at this tipping point of comfort in our industry. And I just think as humans, people they're just unsure, and we're comfortable being face to face because that's what we've done since the beginning of time. And so now here we find ourselves like in this uncharted territory. So Steelhead is taking it upon itself to really understand the virtual landscape. So as humanity starts to transition and integrate virtual more and more into all of its human experiences, Steelhead can show up with knowledge and capability and creativity to be of service to event planners who are starting to recognize that on some level, it's vitally important to consider virtual and integrate it into your event planning. And I think it's still the jury's out as to when, full virtual environments will become the way. But like, as you mentioned, there has been, a movement, and it did definitely start 20 years ago. And we're getting a lot more comfortable with it every single day, just due to the way we're having our human experience.
Well, that's true. And I always tell people it's not an either or thing. Virtual is an enhancement to the live event. And I love that
Right.
that's the approach that you guys are using, is that it's a way to extend that experience and,
Yeah.
build on what's happening on the trade show floor, because, why put all this time and effort and energy? I've always said this. Why focus so much on 3 or 4 days out of the entire year? Why not have it as use virtual as a tool that you can both ramp up to the show and then also continue after the show. And one
Right.
of the fun things I know you guys have implemented is you've got a lot of kind of fun trivia and gamification elements, and a lot of different
Yeah.
things like that built in, and so it is more engaging for people to interact. And I think that's one of the
Yeah.
big keys, because I know one of the objections people had during the pandemic when everything went virtual was, oh, virtual trade shows are horrible. Well, yeah, a lot of them pretty much were because they didn't
Yeah.
do it right.
Yeah.
But I think by making it fun and making it engaging and getting people, involved and letting them win things or whatever, those are some
Yeah.
great ways to get people involved. And I think, as we're starting to see more of the Gen Zs entering the trade show and event space, they're going to really, that's what they grew up with, literally. And so they're going to feel a lot more comfortable in the virtual
Yeah.
arena.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And we all need to admit that new technology tends to be released in a clunky version and it tends to get better with time. And just because the first go isn't awesome doesn't mean it lacks viability. It just means that it needs more R&D. It needs development. It needs investment. And so Steelhead's committed to continuous learning. It's baked into the values of our organization. And this just happens to be one of the avenues that we're just going to continue to play with, so that when it becomes much more in demand, yeah, we're a service provider that people know have been paying attention to it.
Well, and that's the thing. You're going to be on the leading edge, and you'll be one of the long time people, companies in this space eventually, when everybody else
Yeah.
finally gets on the bandwagon. So,
Right.
Rhiannon, thank you so much. Any final thoughts of, we've covered a lot of different ground today, but any final thoughts that you want to leave with?
I just really appreciate you acknowledging the importance of this conversation in our industry. I think we need to continue talking about it. There's a lot more work that can be done in reference to access and the circular economy, reduce, reuse, recycle, repurposing, waste diversion. Like, we as an industry could really positively transition some of the old ways to new progressive, and it requires conversating and mediums like this, where we share the techniques that we're using and why they're important to us, so more people can embrace the movement. So thank you.
Well, thanks, Rhiannon. This is not the first time we've had a conversation about sustainability in virtual lunch, and
Yeah,
it definitely won't be the last.
I'm
And I
so
actually
glad.
will link in the notes to all of the other posts that we've had on sustainability, because I do believe it is one of the important values that our industry really needs to embrace. And like you said, we haven't necessarily been what do I want to say, leaders in the movement so far, but we need to really get on the bandwagon and really start improving our level of
Yeah,
sustainability as an industry. So,
absolutely.
Rhiannon, thank you so much for being here with us today
Thank
on Virtual
you.
Lunch. We always love having you and all your great insights.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
All All right. Well, that is our interview with Rhiannon. Thanks to her for being our guest. And thanks to you for joining us today. I hope to see, well, not see you, but I hope that you will be able to join the conversation on LinkedIn on Thursday and discuss about how to stand out on the trade show floor. And we're going to be changing things up a little bit because, of course, getting into the last quarter of the year and fourth Tuesday usually bumps up into holidays. So we'll be moving things around a little bit for our November and December gatherings as far as virtual lunch. And also, if you have any ideas or suggestions of other topics you'd like to do for open mic discussions, let me know that as well. But we will see you next time on virtual lunch. And so watch for details on that. And then, like I said, hope to connect with you on Thursday for our open mic. So bye. Have a great week.